the universe is complicated, to say the least. It has led many humans speculating for the better part of our existence. In some ways, it is beautiful, boasting a wide range of light shows, spectacles, and anomalies. For this reason, it has become one of the most interesting factors of our reality, leaving early humans speculating at gazing at the sky. It is inhospitable, dark, cold, empty, and extremely vast, but it still managed to attract our attention. Since the dawn of time, we have tried to understand, study, document, and marvel at its beauty, but being unable to fully comprehend how it truly works, and why in particular does it exist, and for that matter, if it even has a purpose. Until recently, technology has evolved far more than anyone could have imagined in such a short amount of time, and we finally have the tools to properly study it. Fortunately, some work has already been done to try to understand our world, for example, astronomers in the 19th century. In 1823, a German astronomer named Heinrich Wilhelm Olbers theorized that if the universe was infinite, then we wouldn't be able to observe the night sky at all, because of the blinding light of stars. This is because if the universe was infinite, then wherever you look up in the sky, at some point, your vision would reach a star. Think of it like a circle. As we know, a circle has an infinite amount of radii, so in whichever direction you look on the two-dimensional disk, you would meet a predefined point. This is formally known as the Olbers paradox or the dark night sky paradox. These findings were written in a book in January of 1826 by J.e.r.o. titled The Berlin Astronomical Yearbook. Quote, "It therefore remains highly probable that not only that part of space which our well-armed eye has surveyed, but the whole of infinite space is occupied by suns." I say most likely, our limited reason cannot give us certainty. Unquote. Or, as Immanuel Kant put it, quote, "Eternity is not sufficient to comprehend God unless it is connected with the infinity of space." Unquote. The paradox left humans puzzled at the time. Think about it, if it truly is infinite, then, by convention, why don't we see a blinding light every time we look up? The next logical hypothesis has to be that it's not really infinite per se, but rather incredibly large, but continuously expanding. This was actually proved, believe it or not, by an astronomer named Edwin Hubble in 1929. He was observing galaxies through his telescope, when he noticed that certain distant galaxies would display a red shift in color. This means that the more their light approaches a longer red wavelength, the more they would move away from us. This realization allowed him to observe that the most distant galaxies would display a more aggressive shift. This could only mean that the farthest galaxies would move away from us faster than the closer galaxies. Edwin Hubble's observation was really helpful in that it allowed us to continue asking questions and continuously explore this out-of-reach world, when we wouldn't be out of reach for so long.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, main engine start, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis to assemble the framework for the science
26 years after this observation, humanity gained all the necessary tools to try to escape the Earth's atmosphere and see how far up we could stick our heads, and maybe our hands too. In 1955, the well-known space race begins between the two Cold War adversaries, the United States and the Soviet Union. This race proved to mankind that space travel was not easy, but not impossible either, while also bringing along with it unforeseen engineering achievements and technological advancements. For example, on October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union manages to achieve the first successful artificial satellite launch, Sputnik 1, gaining an early lead into this race. Subsequently, they are the first to put a man in space, which for 1961 is quite the achievement to say the least. They gained a lot of podium places with many firsts over the years, but the overall winner is the United States putting a man on the moon in 1969 with the Apollo missions. Of course, they didn't go there to just snap some photos and leave. The lunar mission program was crucial in understanding the Earth as well as how it formed and how the moon formed as well. The first thing you encounter when landing on the moon besides the reduction in gravity is the lunar soil. The astronauts described it for us to feel how it really was up there, as the report on the lunar surface says, courtesy of NASA, quote, "The astronauts described the surface, varying from light to dark grey. it appeared that the angle of the sun was a factor. The dust on the lunar surface is called regolith, and on the Apollo 15 landing site, it averaged 1 centimeter in diameter or less. You might have noticed that I used the term lunar soil to refer to the dusty surface of the moon, when in actuality the term lunar soil cannot be correct when referring to regolith, as soil is characterized as being composed of organic materials or content, whereas the moon has none. The Apollo programs introduced humanity to the stars and proved to us once and for all that space travel is not as far away as you think. We went from the invention of the light bulb to putting a man on the moon in less than 100 years. How much time until you start bringing ordinary civilians on regular commercial flights in orbit? Humanity has its ups and many downs, but when it comes to this field, it somehow brings us closer together, much more than anything ever before. It truly shows that the vast emptiness of space can make you forget about countries, politics, and all the negative stuff about this race. Since we sidetracked back to humanity and the Earth, let's have a quick gander at our cosmic backyard for a bit. Mars is quite the special snowflake. It's a terrestrial planet, being primarily composed of carbon dioxide with a thin atmosphere. It's also located inside the Goldilocks zone, which allows for liquid water on its surface. Speaking of its surface, let's talk about Valles Marineris, an extensive canyon system having a whopping 4,200 kilometers in length and 7 kilometers in depth. That's as long as Europe. Mars also proudly boasts about having the biggest mountain in the solar system, the Olympus Mons, which is Latin for Mount Olympus. It has a height of over 21 kilometers, which was measured by m.o.l.a, or the Mars Orbiter Laser Altimeter. While being the largest mountain in the solar system, it's also the largest volcano. The Mariner 9 was launched in May of 1971 and became the first artificial satellite to orbit Mars, settling into a stable orbit in November the same year. The probe proceeded to successfully send back 7,329 images over the course of its mission. As the Mariner 9 mission report released by NASA states, quote, "The probe observed a dust storm had obscured the whole globe. Compiling its global mosaic of images of the surface, it also provided the first pictures of Mars' two moons, Phobos and Deimos." The names Phobos and Deimos translate to fear and dread. Quite the names for two small moons. Saturn is quite interesting too, being the second largest planet in our solar system. It has an average distance between it and the Sun of 9 astronomical units. Bear in mind, 1 astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun, approximately 150 million kilometers, and it takes 10,760 Earth days to revolve once around the Sun. It is also not very dense. It has a mean density of 0.6 grams per cubic centimeter. For reference, water has a density of 1 gram per cubic centimeter, meaning that Saturn could technically float in water. It is classified as a gas giant, being mainly composed of hydrogen and helium. It's interesting that gas giants are often referred to as failed stars because they contain the same elements as a star, and yet they are not. In our solar system, we only have 2 gas giants, Saturn and Jupiter. Now, we all know that being a gas giant is cool and all, but Saturn beats Jupiter on the scale of awesome by having a ring system. This ring system is so large that it wouldn't fit between us and the moon. Which you probably know it's not a ring per se, but rather composed of rocks ranging in size between sand-like grains to kilometer-wide chunks. And it isn't a continuous ring either. Off the top of your head, you might imagine it like that, but it actually has 7 layers labeled D, C, B, A, F, G, and E, with the E ring being the largest ring in our solar system by a long shot, having an extension of approximately 1 million kilometers. Also, the main rings are very young, much younger than our solar system. The rings I'm referring to are A, B, and C, and were formed about a few million years ago, when a meteor struck one of Saturn's moons, which was then torn apart by Saturn's gravity. Another interesting fact about Saturn is its poles, specifically the North Pole, which is shaped like a hexagon. Each side is about 14,500 kilometers long, which, as you might have expected, it's longer than the diameter of our planet. Multiple speculations exist, as usual with humans. Everything in space is aliens until it isn't, right? The hexagonal pattern is most likely a standing wave pattern in the atmosphere. That means that the wave oscillates in time, but its peak amplitude profile does not oscillate in space. The hexagon formation actually rotates with a period of 10 hours and 39 minutes, the exact same period as the planet's radio emissions. While we're on the subject, take a listen to this. I'm gonna stop that there in case I need to buy a new pair of underwear. What you just heard is Saturn's radio emissions, first detected by the Cassini spacecraft. I think the most fascinating part of our universe is its sound, but as we all know, no one can hear a scream in space.